What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. $300,000. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But depending on where you are in this country, 300 grand can get you a sprawling 4-bedroom ranch house on a half-acre lot, or it can get you a studio apartment the size of a walk-in closet. Today we're going to all 50 states and breaking down exactly what $300,000 buys you in each one. We're pulling from real 2025 housing market data, median prices, price per square foot, local context, so you get the real picture. Let's get into it. Alabama. Kicking things off with Alabama, and it's a great start. The median home price here is around $281,000, which means $300,000 actually puts you above the median. We're talking roughly 1,800 to 1,900 square feet of home, likely a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in a suburb like Huntsville or Madison. Alabama's housing market has been heating up thanks to job growth in aerospace and manufacturing, but it's still one of the more affordable states in the South. Your $300K goes far here. Alaska. Alaska is a fascinating case. The median home price sits at around $383,000, so $300,000 lands you below the median statewide. However, in areas like Fairbanks or some of the smaller communities, you can find solid single-family homes in that range, maybe 1,100 to 1,300 square feet. Anchorage will be tighter. Factor in heating costs and the remote lifestyle, and Alaska is unique. Your dollar doesn't stretch as far as you might expect from a state with no income tax. Arizona. Arizona's median home price is around $455,000, so $300K puts you well below the statewide median. In Phoenix or Scottsdale, that budget is going to feel very tight. You're likely looking at a small condo or a fixer-upper. However, venture out to Tucson, Yuma, or smaller cities like Sierra Vista, and $300,000 can still land you a decent 2- or 3-bedroom home around 1,200 to 1,400 square feet. Arizona's market has cooled a bit from its pandemic-era peak, but demand remains high. Arkansas. Arkansas is one of the most underrated affordable states in the country. The median home price is about $253,000, so $300,000 puts you comfortably above the median. Think 3 or even 4 bedrooms, somewhere between 1,600 and 1,800 square feet with a yard. Cities like Fayetteville, Bentonville, and Little Rock offer nice suburban living at prices that feel like a different era compared to the coasts. If you're remote work friendly, Arkansas is genuinely worth looking at. California. Oh boy, here we go. California's median home price is approximately $833,000. $833,000. $300,000 in California is going to be a very rough experience. In Los Angeles, San Francisco, or San Diego, forget it, you might find a parking spot. Even in the Central Valley or Inland Empire, $300K gets you very little. Your best bets are the far northern regions, areas like Redding or parts of the Sacramento Valley, where you might find a modest home around 900 to 1,000 square feet. California is the toughest state on this list by a mile. Colorado. Colorado's median is around $582,000, so $300,000 is going to leave you well short in Denver or Boulder. In Colorado Springs, Pueblo, or some of the Eastern Plains communities, $300K can stretch to a small single-family home, maybe 1,100 square feet. Colorado's market has actually seen slight price corrections recently, down about 1.6% year-over-year, which is rare. Still, it's an expensive state overall, and $300,000 won't buy you the mountain lifestyle you see on Instagram. Connecticut. Connecticut's median is about $415,000. $300K puts you below the median, but there's hope. In cities like Bridgeport, New Haven, or Hartford proper, you can find homes in that price range, though you may be looking at older housing stock that needs some work. Connecticut's market has surged nearly 11% year-over-year, one of the biggest jumps in the country, driven by New Yorkers seeking more space. $300,000 gets you a starting point, not a dream home in this state. Delaware. Delaware's median is around $352,000, putting $300K just under the median. In Wilmington or Dover, your budget can land a townhome or a smaller single-family home around 1,200 square feet. Delaware has no sales tax, which helps with affordability overall, and it's one of the most tax-friendly states in the country. The housing market here has been steady, up about 6% year-over-year. Not bad, not amazing. $300K is workable if you're flexible on location. Florida. Florida's statewide median is around $412,000, but Florida is a state of extremes. Miami, Naples, and the Tampa Bay area are going to laugh at your $300K budget. However, head to the Panhandle, North Florida, or cities like Ocala, Lakeland, or Pensacola, and suddenly $300,000 starts looking a lot more reasonable. Think 1,200 to 1,400 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Florida's market has cooled significantly from its pandemic frenzy and is one of the few states seeing modest price declines. Timing might actually favor buyers right now. Georgia. Georgia's median sits at $366,000, so 300K is close but below the statewide median. Atlanta proper is going to be competitive, but suburbs like Macon, Columbus, Augusta, or the North Georgia communities offer real value. In many of these areas, 300,000 gets you a solid 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a yard, possibly around 1,400 to 1,600 square feet. Georgia has been one of the fastest growing states in the country, and its housing market reflects that, but it's still more accessible than many Sun Belt competitors. Hawaii. Hawaii, the most expensive state to buy a home in the entire country. The median home price is approximately $743,000 for all home types, and single-family homes hit nearly $976,000. $300,000 in Hawaii buys you roughly 440 square feet. That is smaller than most studio apartments. You're basically looking at a very small condo, if you can even find one at that price point. Hawaii is breathtakingly beautiful and breathtakingly unaffordable. Unless you have significant income or are buying land in a very rural area on a less popular island, 300K simply does not work here. Idaho. Idaho's median is around $485,000, and the state has seen massive population and price growth over the past 5 years. 300,000 in Boise is going to be a real struggle. The city has become a tech hub and prices have reflected that. But in Twin Falls, Pocatello, or Idaho Falls, 300K can still get you a decent home in the 1,000 to 1,200 square foot range. The market has stabilized somewhat after the pandemic boom, but Idaho is no longer the hidden gem it once was. Illinois. Here's a surprise. Illinois, home to Chicago, has a statewide median of just $286,000. Why? Because outside of Chicago and its suburbs, Illinois has incredibly affordable housing. In Peoria, Springfield, Rockford, or the countless small cities throughout the state, $300,000 buys you a very nice home, potentially 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, and a big yard. Even in some Chicago suburbs, 300K is workable if you're okay with commuting. Illinois often gets overlooked for affordability, but the data doesn't lie. Indiana. Indiana's median is about $255,000, making $300,000 a comfortable above-median budget. Indianapolis has been growing steadily, and you can still find nice homes in the metro area for that price. In cities like Fort Wayne, South Bend, or Evansville, 300K gets you a genuinely spacious home, think 1,600 to 1,800 square feet. Indiana is quietly one of the best value states in the Midwest for homebuyers. Low property taxes relative to neighbors, solid job market, and reasonable prices. Iowa. Iowa's median home price is just $228,000, one of the lowest in the country. $300,000 in Iowa will get you a lot of house. We're talking potentially 2,000 square feet or more, 4 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, decent yard in a city like Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, or Davenport. Iowa is one of those states that often flies under the radar for affordability. If you work remotely and love a lower cost of living, Iowa is legitimately worth considering. Kansas. Kansas has a median of about $279,000 and is one of the top states for getting the most home per dollar. According to Go Banking Rates, $300,000 in Kansas gets you approximately 1,894 square feet, one of the highest in the nation. Wichita, Overland Park, and Topeka all offer solid housing at very reasonable prices. Kansas may not have the glamour of coastal states, but it delivers incredible value for homebuyers. Kentucky. Kentucky's median is approximately $263,000, which puts 300K firmly above the median. Louisville and Lexington both have growing economies and housing markets that are still relatively accessible. $300,000 in Louisville can get you a nice 3 or 4 bedroom home in a well-established neighborhood, possibly 1,400 to 1,600 square feet. Kentucky has seen steady appreciation of nearly 5% year over year but remains one of the more affordable southern states. Louisiana. Louisiana's median sits at $249,000. $300,000 is a solid budget here. In Baton Rouge, Shreveport, or Lafayette, you're looking at a spacious home, potentially 1,600 to 1,800 square feet, possibly with some genuine character and charm that the South is known for. New Orleans is pricier in desirable neighborhoods, but even there, 300K can get you into the market. Louisiana's housing market has been climbing, up about 5%, but remains very accessible by national standards. Maine. Maine's median is around $381,000, so 300K is below the statewide median. Maine has seen dramatic price growth as remote workers fled cities for its scenic coast and mountains. In Portland, $300,000 is going to feel tight, but venture inland to cities like Lewiston, Auburn, or Bangor, and your budget starts looking a lot better. Expect a modest home, maybe 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. Maine is beautiful but has become one of the pricier northeastern states for what you get. Maryland. Maryland's median is about $415,000. 300K puts you well below the statewide median, and in the Baltimore suburbs or Montgomery County, your options will be very limited. However, in western Maryland, the Eastern Shore, or some parts of Baltimore City itself, 300,000 can get you into a real house. Expect something smaller, around 900 to 1,100 square feet, or be prepared to compromise on condition or location. Maryland's proximity to D.C. keeps prices elevated throughout the state. Massachusetts. Massachusetts has a median of around $615,000. $300,000 here is very challenging. In the Boston metro area, that budget is almost laughably short. Your best bets are in smaller cities in Western Mass, Springfield, Pittsfield, or Holyoke, where 300K can actually get you a real home. Even there, expect older housing stock and be prepared for renovation costs. Massachusetts is an expensive state, full stop. Michigan. Michigan surprises a lot of people. The statewide median is just $249,000. 300,000 in Michigan goes far, especially outside of the Ann Arbor and Detroit area premium zones. In Grand Rapids, Lansing, Kalamazoo, or Traverse City, 300K can get you a solid 3 or 4 bedroom home, potentially 1,500 to 1,800 square feet. Michigan is one of the most underrated housing markets in the country for value seekers. Minnesota. Minnesota's median is about $354,000. 300K is just under the median, but it's still workable. The Twin Cities metro is competitive, but suburban communities around Minneapolis and St. Paul offer real options at that price point. Think 1,100 to 1,300 square feet in a decent neighborhood. Head outstate to Rochester, Duluth, or St. Cloud and your budget stretches further. Minnesota offers a high quality of life, and 300,000 is a reasonable entry point in many markets. Mississippi. Mississippi has one of the lowest median home prices in the country, about $253,000. 300,000 here is quite powerful. You're looking at potentially 1,800 or more square feet in cities like Jackson, Hattiesburg, or Gulfport. The Gulf Coast markets have rebounded well and offer genuinely good value. Mississippi doesn't always get great press, but from a pure housing value standpoint, your dollar goes very far here. Missouri. Missouri's median is approximately $258,000. 300,000 puts you comfortably above the median in a state with a lot of solid mid-sized cities. Kansas City and St. Louis both have neighborhoods where 300K buys a nice home, think 1,400 to 1,600 square feet in an established area. Springfield and Columbia are also very affordable. Missouri is a reliable, mid-range housing market that rewards buyers who do their homework on neighborhoods. Montana. Montana is one of the biggest surprises on this list, and not in a good way for buyers. The median is about $523,000, and it has climbed over 4% in the past year. Montana went from a hidden affordable gem to a pricey destination state as remote workers and out-of-staters flooded in. 300,000 in Billings or Great Falls might get you a smaller home or a fixer-upper, but in Bozeman or Missoula, 300K doesn't go very far at all. Montana's affordability days are largely behind it. Nebraska. Nebraska's median is about $289,000. 300,000 sits right at the median, which means you're in a solid position. In Omaha or Lincoln, 300K gets you a nice 3-bedroom home in a decent neighborhood, probably around 1,300 to 1,500 square feet. Nebraska has one of the most stable housing markets in the country. It didn't spike wildly during the pandemic boom and hasn't crashed either. Reliable, steady, and affordable. Nevada. Nevada's median is around $455,000. Las Vegas, despite its reputation, has become genuinely expensive. 300,000 in Las Vegas is going to limit you to smaller condos, townhomes, or homes in the outer suburbs. Reno is similar. However, in smaller Nevada towns and rural areas, 300K can go much further. The state has no income tax, which helps with overall affordability, but the housing market itself is challenging at the 300K level. New Hampshire. New Hampshire's median is approximately $483,000 and has jumped 8% year over year, partly due to Massachusetts residents seeking more space. 300K is below the median, and in the southern tier of the state near Manchester or Nashua, your options are limited. Head north to the Lakes region or the North Country and you'll find more, but expect a smaller home, maybe 900 to 1,100 square feet. New Hampshire is expensive relative to what many people expect. New Jersey. New Jersey's median is about $521,000, one of the highest in the Northeast. 300,000 in New Jersey is a challenging budget. In South Jersey or some parts of Central Jersey, you might find a modest townhome or older single-family home but expect compromise on size or condition. North Jersey near New York City, 300K is a non-starter in most desirable towns. New Jersey also has notoriously high property taxes, which add to the true cost of ownership well beyond the purchase price. New Mexico. New Mexico's median sits at around $357,000, so 300K is just below the median. Albuquerque is the main market and your budget there gets you a solid starting home. Santa Fe is considerably pricier due to its artsy, tourist-driven economy. Las Cruces offers better value. New Mexico has seen about 9% price growth year over year, one of the bigger jumps in the Southwest. 300K is workable but puts you at the lower end of what's available. New York. New York. The statewide median is about $576,000 and it has jumped 15.5% year over year, one of the fastest rising markets in the nation. New York City itself is essentially off the table at $300,000, but upstate New York tells a completely different story. In cities like Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, or Albany, $300,000 can buy you a genuinely lovely home, potentially 1,500 square feet or more in a nice neighborhood. New York is truly two very different housing markets in one state. North Carolina. North Carolina's median is about $368,000. The state has been one of the hottest migration destinations in the country, and markets like Charlotte, Raleigh, and Asheville have priced up significantly. In those metros, 300K is below the median and gets you a modest starter home. However, in Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Fayetteville, or smaller towns, 300,000 buys a great home, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, around 1,300 to 1,500 square feet. North Carolina remains a strong value proposition compared to its southeastern peers. North Dakota. North Dakota has a median of about $281,000, though it has jumped nearly 13% year over year, one of the biggest surges in the country, likely tied to energy sector activity. 300,000 in Fargo or Bismarck is a solid budget that gets you above the median and into a nice home. North Dakota is rarely top of mind for homebuyers, but it offers a stable economy, low unemployment, and very reasonable housing costs. Ohio. Ohio's median is approximately $241,000, making $300,000 a well above median budget. Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati all have active housing markets where 300K buys a legitimately nice home, think 1,400 to 1,700 square feet in a solid neighborhood. Ohio has seen steady appreciation of about 6% and has become increasingly popular with remote workers seeking Midwest affordability. Columbus in particular has been booming. 300K goes a long way in the Buckeye State. Oklahoma. Oklahoma has one of the lowest median prices in the country at about $244,000. 300,000 is a very comfortable budget here. Oklahoma City and Tulsa, both legitimate mid-sized cities with real amenities, offer homes in the 1,400 to 1,800 square foot range at or below 300K. Oklahoma has no pretensions about being glamorous, but it delivers real value for home buyers who prioritize space and affordability over coastal cachet. Oregon. Oregon's median is around $505,000. Portland is going to be very challenging at 300K. You're looking at a small condo or a home in need of significant work. Eugene and Salem are somewhat more manageable. Bend has gotten expensive. Your best bet for 300K in Oregon is the coast or the eastern part of the state, smaller communities where you can still find a real home. Oregon is beautiful but has priced a lot of middle-class buyers out of its most desirable areas. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's median is about $283,000, which puts 300K just above the median statewide. Philadelphia's suburbs are expensive, but central and western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Allentown, Harrisburg, Scranton offer tremendous value. In Pittsburgh, 300,000 can get you a charming older home with good bones in an interesting neighborhood. Pennsylvania is a large, diverse state, and 300K is a genuinely workable budget in most of it. RHOD Island. Rhode Island's median is about $487,000. As the smallest state, there isn't a lot of geographic escape from high prices. 300K in Providence might get you a condo or a townhome if you look hard. The rest of the state, Warwick, Cranston, Woonsocket, is a bit more accessible but still competitive. Rhode Island has benefited from priced-out Boston buyers, which has kept its market elevated. Expect limited options at the 300K level. South Carolina. South Carolina's median is about $381,000. Charleston and Hilton Head are pricey resort and lifestyle markets where 300K is below the median. But Columbia, Greenville, and Spartanburg, which have been among the fastest growing metros in the South, still offer real value at that price point. 300,000 in Greenville gets you a solid 3-bedroom home in a nice suburb. South Carolina is a great compromise between Southern affordability and quality of life. South Dakota. South Dakota has a median of about $320,000, so 300K is right at the median. Sioux Falls is the dominant market and it's been growing steadily. 300K in Sioux Falls gets you a nice starter to mid-range home around 1,200 to 1,400 square feet. Rapid City is another option. South Dakota has no state income tax, low property taxes, and a steady economy. It's not flashy, but it's solid. Tennessee. Tennessee's median is about $380,000. Nashville has become one of the most competitive housing markets in the Southeast. 300K in Nashville is below median and will limit your options significantly. But Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis, and Clarksville still offer strong value. In those markets, 300,000 can get you a nice 3-bedroom home in the 1,300 to 1,500 square foot range. Tennessee has been a top migration destination for years and it shows in the prices, but it's still more accessible than many comparable Sun Belt states. Texas. Texas has a median of about $338,000, but Texas is a massive, diverse state. Austin has gotten very expensive. 300K there is quite limited. Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas-Fort Worth all have far more inventory at the 300K level where you can find genuine 3-bedroom homes. El Paso and Corpus Christi are even more affordable within the state. One important note, Texas has no state income tax but relatively high property taxes, so factor that into your true monthly cost. Overall, Texas gives 300K a fighting chance in most of its major metros. Utah. Utah's median is around $548,000 and has climbed over 2% year over year. Salt Lake City, Provo, and St. George have become expensive markets driven by tech industry growth and in-migration. 300,000 in the Wasatch Front is going to feel very tight, a small condo or townhome at best. In smaller communities or rural areas of the state, you'll have more luck. Utah is one of those states where the gap between the median and what 300K gets you has widened considerably in recent years. Vermont. Vermont's median is about $388,000, and like many smaller northeastern states, it's been boosted by remote work migration. Burlington is the priciest market. 300K in Vermont gets you below the statewide median, and you'll likely be looking at a small, older home or a rural property, think 900 to 1,100 square feet with some acreage. Vermont is charming and beloved, but it is not affordable in the traditional sense, especially for what you physically get. Virginia. Virginia's median is approximately $444,000, driven up by the Northern Virginia D.C. suburbs, one of the most expensive housing markets in the country. In Arlington, McLean, or Fairfax, 300K doesn't exist as a meaningful entry point, but Richmond, Roanoke, Charlottesville, and Hampton Roads are far more accessible. In Richmond, 300,000 can get you a lovely older home in a nice neighborhood. Virginia is genuinely two very different housing markets divided by geography and proximity to D.C. Washington. Washington State has a median of about $630,000, one of the highest in the country. Seattle and its suburbs are extraordinarily expensive. 300K in King County is not viable for a single-family home. However, eastern Washington, Spokane, the Tri-Cities, Yakima tells a different story. In Spokane, 300,000 can still buy you a real home, probably around 1,100 to 1,300 square feet in a solid neighborhood. Washington is another state of two very different markets. West Virginia. West Virginia is the single most affordable state in the country for housing. The median price is approximately $249,000. And it has the lowest cost per square foot of any state. $300,000 in West Virginia can get you approximately 2,185 square feet, the only state in the country where your 300K budget can purchase a home at or above the national average new home size of 2,180 square feet. That's a lot of house for your money. Morgantown, Charleston, and Huntington are the main markets, all very affordable. The trade-off is a challenging job market and economy, but for remote workers or retirees, the value is undeniable. Wisconsin. Wisconsin's median is about $311,000, putting 300K just under the statewide median. Milwaukee, Madison, and Green Bay are all active but still relatively affordable markets. In Madison, 300K gets you a competitive but achievable starter home. In Milwaukee, it goes further. Wisconsin's market has been rising, up nearly 9% year over year, but it remains significantly more affordable than neighboring Illinois' Chicago market or Minnesota's Twin Cities. 300K is a real, workable budget here. Wyoming. Wyoming wraps up our list, and it's a surprising entry on the expensive side. The median is about $484,000, and it has jumped a remarkable 15.4% year over year, one of the steepest increases in the country. Wyoming has attracted high-net-worth individuals seeking no income tax and wide-open spaces, and that has driven up prices considerably. 300K in Cheyenne or Casper might still work for a smaller or older home, but in Jackson Hole or Teton County, $300,000 is not even close to competitive. And that's all 50 states, so let's bring it home. The bottom line is this: $300,000 is either a lot of money or barely enough, depending entirely on where you plant your flag. If you want the most house for your money, West Virginia, Kansas, Mississippi, Iowa, and Oklahoma lead the pack. If you're set on a coastal lifestyle, California, Hawaii, Washington, Massachusetts, and New York are going to put up a serious fight against your budget. The national median home price right now is hovering around $360,000 to $400,000 depending on which index you look at, meaning 300K is actually below the national median. That's a sobering reality for first-time buyers. The good news, there are still a lot of great states where $300,000 can buy you a genuine, comfortable, quality home. You just might need to rethink which state is the right fit for your life. If you found this video useful, hit that like button. It genuinely helps the channel more than you know. Subscribe if you want more real estate breakdowns, and drop a comment below telling me which state surprised you the most. I'll see you in the next one.